Hey, what's up guys, it's Mike with Alpha Reptile back from another video today. Today we are doing a roast my enclosure. We'll get into that. We are doing that with Bree at Bree's Exotics on Instagram because she's the most shameless person I know. It's been about a month since I've made a video. Sorry for those of you guys that actually watch my channel, we came here today to make this video of rating your enclosures. We've seen this done a lot in the pet tube community.
It's been done all the same way. Everyone does the same thing where it's basically you guys submit your enclosures and they just kind of, how to put it lightly.
I mean, that's how they put it. They just put everything lightly. It's
everything
like,
is put very lightly without offering very, if any, constructive criticism.
Yeah.
If something's very wrong with the tank, none of it is actually pointed out.
True.
Everything is very fluffy in those videos, and we just kind of wanted to do a video that was very similar to those videos. However, we wanted to actually provide some of our opinions and knowledge on your enclosures to maybe actually help you guys improve them in a way without just saying these look amazing, even if maybe they don't. We don't want to lie to you guys that we want this to be a brutally honest video in which case may actually help you guys improve as a—
We're not professionals. We're not experts for this video. Any species that we didn't have any personal experience with, we looked up their care, looked up all their care requirements from multiple sources.
Yes.
We are prepared for this. So it's not just going like, oh, I don't have that, it looks good.
A lot of the species that were submitted we have actually worked with and personally kept.
I think there was one that we didn't.
Both of our knowledge combined, we both have experience working with a variety of rare geckos, rare chameleons, monitors, frogs, so like all the likes combined. We do have a vast knowledge of species that maybe we don't even personally have, but we have worked with and do have extensive knowledge and research on. This is all entirely our opinion.
Yeah.
Don't personally take this as an attack on you guys if we say we don't like something.
Yeah.
Some things are like truly just our opinion.
And we're both coming from a point of, we both love, I'm going to say naturalistic, because bioactive, Troy.
This vivarium are doing well.
Bioactive.
We both have very naturalistic enclosures. We both strive to have UVB hotspots for a lot of animals that aren't typically recommended to have hotspots, or UV, crested geckos most notably. Just forward-thinking reptile keeping. Oh, I guess we should mention that this is a roast. We said it very bluntly. We are going to say things bluntly.
We're
For
going
my
to
friends,
be brutally honest. We don't want to lie. The whole point of this video is we are not going to lie to you. If you submitted your enclosure, we are not going to tell you something that isn't true. If we personally believe that something needs to be changed, we will say so.
Yeah.
Don't expect us to say this looks wonderful if we personally believe it doesn't. I'm saying personally because this is a personal opinion again.
In this video, we are doing a rating system. We have 5 different categories out of 10 points. Our categories are size of the tank, which basically entails anywhere from very bare minimum to holy crap, you have a 120 gallon for a crested gecko. Our second category that we're rating tanks out of is functionality.
Functionality is going to be based on ease of cleaning. How has your enclosure been designed? Is everything in an easy to reach spot? Where are the lights located? Are there gaps and cracks that animals can escape from? It's basically going to be how your enclosure is set so that everything is easily maintained.
Our third category is aesthetic. So as we mentioned in the kind of preamble, our aesthetic is very functional but naturalistic. I mean, as you can see, the chameleon tank behind us is fully live planted. Essentially, it's just going to be a category where, does it look good?
We're basing it off of our opinion. This is going to be a solely opinionated category.
So our number 4 category is going to be the use of space.
Use of space is exactly how it sounds. It's, did you utilize the enclosure's entire space? Do you have a large tank with the entire middle completely empty, or did you fill it all up entirely? It's as simple as that. We want to see as much space utilized as possible for the species that you're keeping in it.
And the fifth category is species suitability. This is a little bit more of an objective category. It's going to be primarily based on things like UV availability and whether it's present or not. It was a very black or white matter. It was either it was there or it wasn't there, which is useful. There's also things that we couldn't really tell in many of the setups, what the temperature was, what the humidity was, that kind of deal. So it's mostly based off of just UV, if it's obviously big enough, if it is adequately set up. Like if a leopard gecko has one hide, it's not suitable for that species.
We also included, like, do you have maybe the wrong substrate in? We base this category on a variety of different things, and we will discuss it as we go through each enclosure, why we added points or took them away.
Now that we've gone over kind of the categories and how this is going to go, now things should run more smoothly. And for the future episodes of Roast My Enclosure or Rate My Enclosure, we're just going to refer people back to that. Our first Roast My Enclosure goes to Julia.
Mixed Shits and Pets has submitted a 2-year-old male leopard gecko. This enclosure is 32 inches long, 19 inches wide, and 6 inches tall. Now, this is actually a bin enclosure for a leopard gecko. We did think the size of, like, the overall size of it was decent. However, we did believe it was a tad bit short. There really isn't much space for the gecko to climb at all. Like, not that there was anything for it to climb.
Yeah, true.
Should it have wanted to and been provided the space to climb, there really wasn't space for it to do so.
Yeah, there's no real height on the tank itself. It's 6 inches tall, so we gave it a 1 because it has plenty of floor space, but from our experience, our leopard geckos love to use the entire tank, and if given a tank with more height, they will utilize it. So for that, we're giving you a 1 for size. Now, the functionality of the tank, it's pretty functional. I mean, it's very easy to clean. It is paper towel, especially with a leopard gecko, because they do typically only go to the bathroom in one spot, so
all the hides and all the plants are all plastic, easily sterilized and washed down. It would be an excellent quarantine setup. However, from our knowledge, that was not included. This may be a permanent setup for this leopard gecko.
Assuming so.
Overall, this is a very functional enclosure, easy to maintain and keep clean.
And with that, we gave it a 2. So we know it's super functional, but aesthetically...
We actually gave you a 0 for aesthetic. You put what looks like one single large fake plastic plant that comes across the entire enclosure. You have 2 plastic hides. If that, one of them is like completely clear, which defeats the purpose of a hide. One of them's blue, one of them's orange, one of them's black. There's no flow, it doesn't really look nice. Remember, again, this is all my personal opinion. There could have been a lot more branches, a lot more bushes, a lot more greenery, some more natural looking hides perhaps. Especially, like, you want to make sure that the hides are actual hides. You don't want to be able to see inside the hide because you can't hide. Definitely not an aesthetically pleasing enclosure to us.
So the fourth category is use of space. It is fairly well used. There obviously isn't much height to be used, so that kind of innately gives you points right there. Everything's super easy to access, very easily cleanable, and there is a little bit of plants and things, so...
However, there is a bit of empty space in the middle, and the plant coverage is extremely sparse. So because of that, you did actually lose another point. So for the use of space, we only gave you a 1.
And finally, we have species suitability. So classically, great for a leopard gecko. Easy to clean, bin enclosure, easy to sterilize, plastic everything, throw away the paper towel, you're good to go. However, based on our opinion...
For a pet leopard gecko, this wouldn't be ideal. If this was perhaps maybe a breeder leopard gecko, or this was your quarantine tub, this would be like perfect or fantastic. But if this is your pet leopard gecko, I just think you could do a lot better. We don't see any evidence of a humid hide. Granted, one of these could be a humid hide, but it would be hard to tell. I don't see any moss or soil. There is no calcium dish in this enclosure either.
Not that we can see, at least.
That we can see. And then, of course, there is no UVB provided.
That said, we gave it a 0.5 for that. The grand total for Julia McShitson Pets.
I really would like to know why.
I mean, you can't control your last name.
But is it?
But, well, I guess. Yeah, you never know. The grand total for you is 4.5 out of 10. That's
really hope to see some improvements.
Yeah.
It would be really cool. We'd actually love to see
Yeah.
if you sent us some updated videos or
Yeah.
pictures, and maybe like in the future when we do one of these videos, we could roast your enclosure again and see just how much you've improved on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your submission.
The second enclosure we're going to roast on this video is Petco. You guys might know him as the Dark Den. He's kind of a hot shot here on YouTube, but, you know, he does tarantulas, so we're going to really see his enclosure.
We promise to serve it to you mildly.
Yes. So Petco ended up submitting his Crested gecko tank. Now, you guys, of course, know him for the tarantulas that he keeps, or maybe you don't know him because I don't really have many tarantulas, but he's an awesome YouTuber, great guy. I've actually met him in person. Petco, I hope you're ready for this.
It is for a Crested gecko,
Yeah.
as we said. It does have this really cool custom-made tree background, I guess if you can call it a background, because it's kind of like in the corner. I actually am quite a big fan of the way it looks with the branches and the hole cut out for a little hide.
And by that, she means it's shit, Petco.
But we're not on that yet. We're going to start with the size.
Yes. So the size of the enclosure, 50 by 50 by 35, which is approximately, if I remember correctly, around like 19 inches by 19 inches by like 13 inches. So it's a very strange size, but I know that was basically just to fit into his racking system that he has.
It's a tad small.
Yeah.
It definitely could be a bit larger. But it's a decent size. We gave it a 1.5 for the size.
Yep, it's not massive. It's certainly adequate.
Yeah, it's adequate, but could definitely be a little bit larger.
Yeah. In terms of functionality, it looks quite functional. The feeding ledge is very accessible. You can reach in there with no problems. Cleaning looks pretty easy.
I did have a bit of concern about the back part of the glass. Something I'm really big on is once you get, like, I make sure with all my backgrounds, I make sure this whole back is covered, because once you start getting back there, or if the gecko poops on the back, you really will struggle to get in there and clean that back glass without destroying your background.
You'll see in the video there's a couple less functional Crested gecko enclosures. And in terms of functionality, this is quite good. It's got a nice perch. It's got the hide in the actual background itself, which
It actually
is awesome.
has a feeding ledge, which when it comes to this video, feeding ledge is actually a bonus.
Now, in terms of aesthetic, what did you think of it?
I said in the beginning, I really do enjoy the custom tree trunk with the hole cut through and the branches. I do think that looks wonderful.
Yeah.
Good job with that, Petco. I do enjoy it quite a lot. However, I do think there's a lot of emptiness that could have been filled with some larger, more full plants. In the middle of the tree hollow or at the back corner, could have used a nice full plant to really liven up the setup and really make use of the rest of the space.
Yeah, something like a spathiphyllum or a peace lily. Could have even had like Krauton. Yeah, there's several different plants that would work there. It's just would add some more life to the tank. It wouldn't look like just a basic branch and then emptiness and then a little fern.
So the aesthetic is very similar to what we gave for, like, what we've already talked about. It looks wonderful as it is right now. However, it would look a lot nicer if it had some more foliage in the tank. Just for that, we docked it 0.5.
Yep.
So we gave it a 1.5. Easily fixable solution. Throw in a nice plant and it would liven this tank right up, and I think it would look absolutely beautiful. So for the use of space, you've actually utilized this space very well. That nice big tree trunk that you've built with the hollow in it and the branches coming out has really utilized the space of the enclosure. You have utilized top to bottom. There is a lot of space for the Cresty to use.
Yeah.
And for that, we actually gave you a 2. It is a very well utilized space.
The only thing that really could have improved it was a slightly larger plant, but we figured that fit more into aesthetic rather than use of space, so...
Wasn't big enough to dock you on
Yeah,
it.
exactly. For species suitability, we figured it was pretty good. Overall, the tank is just large enough. Like we said, it could be a little bit bigger, but we didn't think that was really worthy of knocking off a point. Where we did end up knocking off points is for the lack of a basking spot and lack of UVB. As our previous beliefs have said, we do believe that UV is beneficial to them, and that is becoming more common knowledge now, so that's nice.
As well as a little bit warmer of a temperature than people like to believe that crested geckos can be kept in. Now that is room dependent, so if your room is quite a bit warmer, then maybe the basking spot wouldn't stress it, but I definitely would make sure UVB is well utilized by them, for sure.
Correct, yeah. And so with that said, we gave you a 1.5 for the lack of UV / lack of basking spot. The overall total for the Dark Den Petco, my friend, your slightly mild, not spicy roast, is 8 out of 10. So good job, Petco. You did pretty well. There are definitely things you can improve on, but overall, pretty solid.
Would love to see that big plant in there.
Don't show it in the video, and you don't mention it's our idea.
We'll cry.
I hope to see you at some point, and I'll shake your hand. Our third roast in this video is going to be from Ben.
Bike the Lizard, Mr. Ben, I have some questions for
Just
you.
stop.
Speaking of motorbikes,
That was oddly timed.
I have a question for you. You did include that you have 2 golden bell tree frogs, but the scientific name you included does not match that of a golden bell tree frog. Litoria moriae is that of a motorbike tree frog.
Correct.
And the scientific name you were looking for, if you have golden bell tree frogs, is Litoria aureae, or aurea. I'm not sure which one you have. You either have the motorbike tree frog or you have a golden bell frog. If you have motorbike tree frogs, that'd be super cool because they sound like motorbikes.
They sound wild. I'll play a clip for you guys to check out their sound now.
They sound painfully like a motorbike.
Yes.
So this is a species that I have not kept or worked with, but I did do some research on them. They are your pretty standard lowland rivers tree frog. This was a fairly decent tank for them, I might say. So he included some details on them. He said that he has 2 of them. They are a large adult female and a juvenile adult male. Dimensions of the tank are 60 centimeters by 45 centimeters by 47 centimeters.
If you guys don't know, that is 2 foot by 18 by 18. That is a pretty good size for the species. Based on the research that we found, that's more than adequate.
Especially for just a pair of them.
Yeah.
That's actually a pretty decent size.
There's not really much else to it. We gave you a 2 for it. They've got plenty of space in there, especially for just the pair.
So in terms of functionality, we said it was a fairly functional tank. It looks like it's a bioactive tank. It's live planted. It looks like everything would be fairly accessible if they had to retrieve the frogs or do any sort of maintenance with the plants. Water features are excellent, especially since these are water-loving frogs. However, from what I can tell in the photos, I can't see there being any filter or pump. Now, that's just from like what I can see. I don't know. There may be a filter hidden somewhere. It's very heavily planted, so maybe hiding in the back.
Yeah.
But just because of that, since maintaining water features is a lot of work, especially if it's stagnant water and dead crickets or poop gets in there, it can be a little bit messy. So just for that, we docked you half a point. But if you do have a filter in there, awesome. If you don't, I'd recommend adding one in there.
Take your sip. Hey guys, links to the stickers on reptilesrus.ca. Go check it out.
Shameless plug.
You're welcome, Keith. While the tank is quite functional aesthetically, it's only so-so in my opinion. I weighed my opinion heavily on this category because I am really not a fan of just an overflowing jungle. Like, you can see the plants are all at the top of the tank. They're quite big for the tank size, and I get that that is kind of needed for these large-bodied frogs. However, if that's the case, I'd probably just get a taller tank so they can actually grow a little bit more. That's just me personally. The other issue that I saw was there's only one branch.
Yeah, being a heavier bodied tree frog, I think they may have preferred maybe another branch across the other side. So they like, you can see one of the, I think that's probably the adult female,
Up
quite
top,
large
yeah.
up top, resting on the leaves. Might have enjoyed one of another larger branch spanning across the enclosure to evenly distribute some weight on. I love dense jungles, so my frog bin is a dense jungle as well. But, you know, it would also, like, you can see the lights being blocked out, so eventually the dense jungle becomes a little bit too dense.
Yeah.
And you'll need to cut down quite a bit of it, and that's when you'll need more branches to come into play.
Now, for the use of space, it was quite well used. There is the pond and or huge water dish. There is suitable species of plants, and
It's filled top to
Overall,
bottom, left
yeah.
to right. Every bit of the space is used. Granted, it could have used another branch, but for that, we gave you a 2.
and species suitability, it follows that same track. It's very well used. Overall, great for the species. It looks like it maintains super high humidity. There is the pond for the frogs themselves.
I'd love to know what species these actually are,
Yeah.
but if it's one of these 2 species that are both like a river tree frog, this is a very suitable enclosure for both of those species. Quite a nice enclosure.
Yep, overall, we gave you 2. So, Ben, for your total,
Underscore, Spike, underscore, the lizard.
you almost did it too.
It's a lot of underscores.
Got a 7.5 out of 10. Very well done, Ben.
Thanks
Good job.
for submitting.
And if you have any other reptile enclosures or amphibian enclosures, feel free to send them in for the next round of judging. So for our 4th contestant, we are rating Timothy. Now he has a...
Juvenile bearded dragon. So still a little, however in the pictures. We'll
Almost
call him
there.
a subadult.
Subadult,
Bearded dragon. He's quite orange, so he's actually quite pretty. His enclosure dimensions are 4x2x2, which is quite the size for a beardy, so well done.
I'd say minimum for a beauty.
Minimum for a beardy, so...
Better than a 40-gallon, so you're doing good.
Also said that his enclosure is not finalized, and that the rock on the left side will be levitated and attached to the side of the wall, so it's not currently finished.
Size-wise, we kind of touched on it already. The tank is great. Honestly, in my opinion, based on a more well-kept bearded dragon, not some of the ones that you see on TikTok, ladies and gentlemen, it should be a more... Wow. It should be a leaner animal, not just complete Jabba the Hutt. I know, I look like him too, it's fine. But a lean, mean, captive lizard that should be quite active, have a hot basking spot, and do really well. That is what is provided by the size of tank. You want a 4x2x2. It's 120 gallons if you guys don't know what the conversion is. But in my opinion, that's the bare minimum.
In mine as well. Like,
Yeah.
you really... like 40 gallons, we need to stop recommending that. That's just really...
Very least a 75. That's 4x18x21, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's just way too small. So this is a very decent size. So well done, Timothy, for the size.
And with that being said, you get a 2 out of the 2 possible points.
It looks to be a very functional tank. Everything looks like it would be easy to clean. Substrate's easy to clean. Everything looks like it's universal rock. The background, all of the fake rock, so to speak, it look like they're from universal rock, which means they're easily scrubbed and wiped off. So it would also be a very cleanable enclosure, since I'm sure some of you know how messy bearded dragon poops can be. However, one thing we did notice was the distance between the basking platform and the lights. So we were a little bit concerned about how functional that might be.
We're speculating that it's kind of low. We're just speculating. We don't know exactly what the temperatures are. However, for functionality-wise, we assume there is UVB, and depending on what bulb you're using for that will really heavily influence what kind of exposure they're getting. Now, with that said, we decided to take that into consideration, assuming that it might be too low, and give you a 1.5.
It's an easily fixable solution depending on what it is, and we're welcome to also help you out and chat with you on if you're struggling with meeting those correct parameters.
Now, aesthetically,
it definitely has more potential. The universal rock is awesome. I love the look of universal rock. It's a great background, great fake rocks. I I know plants are often here and there, hit and miss with beardies, and sometimes they're like, let's eat them. But I definitely think some more logs and branches would be cool,
Yeah.
especially to get that basking platform. Some nice like grapevine or something would look really great.
And for me personally, I'm this is really nitpicking, so fair warning, but it looks through the pictures that the sides of the tank and the back of the tank are two different sets of universal rock, so they're actually a different color. Now,
I told him it was nitpicky.
yeah, she did, but this is just me being like, we're roasting your tanks. It needs to be called out. So, with the branches, my little nitpicking and everything, aesthetically, we're giving it a 1.5 out of 2. Now, rolling right from aesthetic into use of space, we figured it was pretty solid. It can climb up the background, it looks like. You mentioned that the rock is going to be mounted on the wall.
So it will have 3 levels to climb on the sides. Just that middle space is going to be very empty if you don't add... Especially with that left rock lifted up, that middle is going to be completely void of anything for it to climb on or touch on, especially to get up to that basking platform. So like I said, like if you can add some maybe grapevine or cork flats or something to get it...
cork branches.
Cork branches, something to get it up off the ground. Beardies in the wild are known to bask up on branches, not even directly on the sand.
And it is important to remember that if you're raising stuff up off the ground, our point of potentially things might not be too hot or enough UV changes drastically. If you're lifting it from 18 inches to 8 inches...
You don't want to burn the dragon's eyes out of its skull with your UVB.
Yeah, please don't do that.
Yeah.
UV of 19 is too high.
Remember, when you change one thing, you also have to change another.
Correct.
So be very careful with what you're doing. And like we said, if you need help, we can help you out.
And so with that said, use of space, what do we give it?
1.5.
You bet. Our final category of species suitability.
We said it's pretty suitable for a bearded dragon. Great size, great look, has great places to climb on once you add some branches or something like that. The only thing we had a little bit of issues with was what looks like your choice of substrate. We can't really make it out. Looks like it may be like cypress mulch, wood chips, or something like that.
That's so hard to tell.
We're a huge fan of substrate, so we're not telling you you have to switch it to tile. Paper towel is your style, go for it, but by the looks of it, you want to do some sort of substrate. We would say go with a soil and sand mixture.
Yep.
That would be a lot better than using wood chips. It would also mimic a more natural environment that they're used to.
Yeah, and I mean, beardies in the wild are naturally on 100% sand. So if you want to do that, it's not the worst. I know some people will probably light us in the comments for saying that, but if you guys don't follow the Beardy Vet on Facebook, they are in Australia taking samples of the earth, and it's 96 or 99% quartz. So keep that in mind.
A healthy, well-maintained bearded dragon, especially if you're not feeding them directly on the sand, is not going to struggle. Especially if you have places for it to get off the sand, is not going to struggle if you have sand in the bottom. But then, of course, if you don't want to do the sand, a 50-50 soil sand, or even a...
Arcadia Earth Mix.
If you can't get Arcadia Earth Mix, or even if you do a higher mixture to sand to soil, is an excellent mix for beardies. Works great.
Yep. And so with that being said, overall, it's pretty solid. We just knocked half a point off for the substrate, or lack thereof, potentially, if you're doing...
Suspicious substrate choice.
We don't know what we don't know what you're going for, so we gave you a 1.5.
Yeah, so overall, you got a total of 8, which is pretty solid.
Yeah.
Like, that's a solid score.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for submitting. Hope to see some changes with some branches, and I think you'll have one very happy bearded dragon.
For our last submission, we will be doing multiple of these videos. For those of you that didn't get roasted in this first part, don't worry, it's coming. We have Morgan.
And now Morgan submitted an 18-18-24 black PVC bioactive vivarium for a 10-month-old crested gecko. They also mentioned that they'll be upgrading it once they reach adult size, which is great because an 18-24 is already the minimum size for crested gecko, so making it bigger is also just going above and beyond.
Yep.
So that's an awesome job. Morgan mentioned that it has a cleanup crew of earthworms, superworms, morio beetles, springtails, and dubia roaches. Long cleanup crew lists are great. Means you have a nice assortment going on there in the soil, churning things up. They sent in 2 pictures, and we're gonna go through it. First, we got size.
So, I mean, we kind of said it already, but the size is, we're just going to say, it's a 2. You got a juvenile crested gecko in its full adult enclosure, and you're going to be upgrading it once it becomes an adult. So that already is going way above and beyond, and so for that, you get the 2. Not much more to say about that. Now, in terms of functionality, you guys can see on the screen that it is a very much spotlight effect tank. Between the first picture and the second picture, what did they say? Like 5 months went
There's
by?
a 5 months difference, but you don't see a lot of growth in the plants.
Yeah.
Why? Like, you can tell that the spotlight effect is not doing much for those plants.
Yeah.
Normally in 5 months, had you had the proper light, you would see an explosion of growth, especially in the undergrowth. But you can see that only the plant in the center maybe grew a little bit.
Yeah.
The plants are beginning to suffer, and they will continue to suffer as the time grows on with that single spotlight effect. It's in a PVC tank, which is great because you don't have any glass sides to clean poop off of. It's got an acrylic front, which is easy to wipe up. The only big issue that we have is that over time, that spotlight will not maintain those live plants. Yeah. And eventually all the ones on the side will die off from the lack of light.
The plant choice themselves is actually quite strong. You got a Dieffenbachia in there. You got a Syngonium, it looks like. You got a Sansevieria, or now Dracaena, which... Why, science? Why? We gave you a 1.5 just because the lighting is just a standard little puck light.
Could definitely use a Sunblaster LED, Jungle Dawn LED, or even just a
or
T5.
Any of the others up there.
Something to brighten it up, because even in the picture, it's very dark. It's hard to see. And I'm sure even you would like to enjoy the brightness of a full, like, well-lit enclosure.
Now, for aesthetic, it's really killed by that lack of light. It has great components to it. The wood is great. The vines are well laid out. The plants themselves are actually great choices for a crested gecko. However, just...
You can't see anything.
Exactly.
It's dark. And just because of that, it really kills the aesthetic, the darkness, and you can't see all the detail you put into this tank, all the work you put into it.
And one fine detail that I happened to pick up on, even in the darkness, is that the plants are actually still in their pots. Now, that is kind of a no-no in my opinion, just because if you give a plant all the space of the actual tank itself to grow, it's going to be a lot stronger, there's going to be more available nutrients, and you said with all that cleanup crew, they're going to be processing nutrients like crazy, so your plants will explode. Now, that's not really possible in tiny pots.
They'll
I don't know.
also get root bound should you not upgrade them.
Yeah, and there will be roots that find their way out of the pot, but overall they will be heavily root bound. So
I didn't even see they were in pots. It was so dark, so I had to really look close, so he did notice that.
Aesthetically, it has great potential, but we had to give you a 1 due to the points we mentioned. Now for our 4th category, we have use of space.
Well utilized. There's branches on every corner. The Cresty has many places to choose from to climb and hide, and it's got an awesome feeding ledge, which is great. I hate seeing enclosures that are 18 by 24 and the whole top is completely empty.
Stay tuned for the next video.
So with all that said, we gave you a 2.
Great overall tank, great use of space, and species suitability. This is kind of where the lack of UV comes in. The lack of UVB is what really kind of killed this tank, I suppose, for me at least, and for us, I can say. Now, if you are looking to add UVB into a tank of that size and mount it inside the tank, you're going to want to make sure that there's no real basking branches, probably about 5 to 8 inches away. Or you can also buy or make yourself a screen to go over it, because most screens will filter out anywhere from 30 to 50% of the UVB rays. So keep that in mind. And obviously your tank displays a lot of different hiding areas and things, so the crested gecko will be able to escape from any UV radiation. So that's really all the criticisms we had for the species suitability. I assume it maintains the temperature very well. It maintains humidity obviously very well because it is a PVC tank.
PVC is great for that.
Yeah, overall we gave you a 1.5. So in total, with the few minor improvements that we mentioned, you could have a 10, but this time you got an 8. So look
Pretty
forward to seeing
solid
it.
score, regardless.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Everything is easily changeable, and we'd look forward to seeing it improved.
and so guys, that is going to do it for now. This is going to be an insanely long video. I'm sorry for that. We will be able to streamline the process for the next one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video.
We want to thank you all for your submissions. Hopefully none of you leave this video crying, thinking we hate your tanks.
Petco.
But hopefully we did give you some helpful suggestions that you do personally think about and you take to heart. Make those improvements, and we would personally love to see them. If you do have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to leave them in the comments below, or you can send either of us a DM and we'd be happy to help you out personally.
We have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter,
pretty much
YouTube.
all of the above.
If you can find a social media outlet, we probably have it. This is Bree at Bree's Exotics on Instagram.
And every social media there is.
True, but she doesn't post videos. Harper on that, feel free.
Please don't.
It won't help.
Don't DM me asking me to post YouTube videos. It won't work, I promise.
I want to thank you all very much for watching. I had a lot of fun. We were kind of figuring out the kinks in this one. There were some smooth and some not so smooth that has gone on.
It'll be better for the next one, we promise.
Absolutely. I would love to hear your improvements down below. So if you guys would like to see some different rating categories for, probably 3 or 4 episodes from now, great. If you guys have any other kind of quirks or
we're happy to take any and all suggestions
Yeah.
on these style of videos. If you want to see more, we're happy to do more. Whatever you guys want to see, we're happy to do it. We love to help you guys out.
Yep.
And just give our honest opinion. That's what we...
both of us don't like sugarcoating things.
Yeah, sugarcoating things is not our style, so hopefully this was an honest enough review of your guys' enclosures for you. If you want us to even be more brutally honest, let us know, and we can throw a little bit more in there.
Yeah, let us know in the comments down below. While you're down there, feel free to click the Show More tab. That will lead you to all of my Instagrams and my social medias. I will leave Breeze down there. And also, for those of you that have made it to the very end of this video, I have a merch store. Clearly, you've been watching this video for like half an hour. You might as well buy some merch at the same time. Why not?
It's got chameleons.
It's cool. She'll have some very soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Later.